Start acting like it. Don't be such a coward. Don't be such a coward.
So I think we all know that Israel has declared war on American citizens, specifically Gen Zers, by purchasing TikTok. But we have to give the Gen Zers credit for figuring out how to get their message out and how to let the Zionist occupiers know that they're fighting back.
Are you guys coffee person or a tea person? I used to drink like 3 coffees a day when I was working in the office every day. I don't know how I survived that. Right now, I try to take 1 coffee a day and maybe a tea in the afternoon. And I have to like monitor my overall caffeine intake a day. But really, I think I need to drink more water.
Bring it on, Ellison. Welcome back to another episode of Political Newbie. Noah Clark here, just an average New Yorker waking up from a dream and trying to make sense of all this fucking mess that I find myself in, and I thank you so much for joining me. So before I get into this episode, I want to thank everyone who is subscribing to this podcast, who engage me in the comments, and I know sometimes we do have some lengthy exchanges. Some people are recommending books for me, even though it's a nightmare to try and catch up with all the reading material and everything else, as I'm sure you can imagine. Some of you are so insanely generous that you even donate to my coffee link in a way that far exceeds my expectations. So I also want to say thank you, because when I started this channel back in April, I did intend for it to be an outlet for my frustrations and a way to channel my research, so I wasn't mindlessly doom scrolling and absorbing all of this anxiety and rendering myself inert due to the convoluted nature of everything. And so I thought a good way to slow down and process and become more politicized, which is what I want to be, would be to incentivize my consumption by creating this channel, and so I did. And I really did believe that it would take me about a year to attract 100 people willing to engage me, because there are so many credible voices talking about all of this and so little time. A lot of people don't have time to consume long form content, which, by the way, I enjoy. I love long form, and it's really the only kind of content that I do enjoy consuming. So, and believe it or not, the amount of obscurity that I thought it would have actually gave me the confidence to start this personal project where I get to externalize my frustrations and learn along the way while I do it. So when I started getting pilled, I was just being buried under all this information, and I had no one around me interested in getting into the weeds about it with me. And that's really overwhelming when you have all these questions and you want to explore information out loud with someone and there's no one really to do it with. But I do want to say, I am married, I do have a husband, but I'm sure you can imagine by the time he gets home and we bond, catch up on the day-to-day things, routine things, there really isn't much time left in the day to go really deep into all my newbie political explorations before bedtime. And he's much newer at this than I am. So while he's doing his own research, he's learning a lot from me. My overall point is, I was very overwhelmed and isolated when I started this channel, and I don't feel that anymore because I get to share the burden of the madness with more than just my husband, especially when you engage me in the comments, even when we're fighting, okay, or having disagreements with each other. I really appreciate it. So yeah, this is just a really long, big fat thank you. So I'm gonna dive right back into this episode by sharing something with you from Gen Zers that really cheered me up, and I really think it's gonna cheer you up. Listen to this.
Hey, to everyone that supports Nick Fuentes, just know, bro, he switched up. APAC paid him 241 grand to support their twisted agenda, bro. APAC is not good, bro. All the politicians you know, they have their APAC guys controlling
every single congressman has an APAC guy.
Wake up.
Every single one. Wake the fuck up, bro.
Wake
Our
up.
government is controlled by Israel and we don't even know, bro. Wake up. Literally. Nobody realizes, bro. You vote for these people, bro. Your vote's not going to anything.
You're voting for Israel. No matter what you vote for, you're voting for Israel.
You're voting for an actor.
There's no point in even following a political party.
And George Washington warned about the two-party system ever since the beginning. Right before he died, he was talking about the two-party system
and nobody listened. Nobody listened. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now, bro. And you have fucking people, the Charlie Kirk killer, and Trump is blaming on the fucking Democrats for a reason. Wake up.
They're trying to divide us.
They're
trying to divide us. Stand together and stand against
so
this
Republicans hate
government.
Democrats and Democrats hate Republicans. It's going to be like that for as long as we know.
That's exactly how they want it. That's exactly what they want.
Exactly.
Unite and wake up together.
Stay woke, bro. Wake
together.
the fuck up, bro.
Stay woke.
Wake up.
I just want to say, this makes me feel so good because they understand the plot. right? I mean, you could hear them saying things that Nick Fuentes says, but you can also hear that they're listening to other people. So they're not just soaking up all of Nick Fuentes' information by itself. They're taking information from other directions, and this is great. And yes, you did hear that correctly. They did call Nick Fuentes out at the beginning of the clip there. And I called him out too, because he intentionally misrepresented Tucker and Candace and Max Blumenthal. But how on earth did Unit 8200 on TikTok let these videos slip through the cracks? How? This is crazy. And we're here for it. We're here for it. So yeah, Nick Fuentes is definitely misrepresenting the investigations going on by Candace Owens and Max Blumenthal and others. Even though on his stream the other day, he did revise his representation of Candace and Tucker to accurately reflect what their position has been from day one. He's still misrepresenting Max Blumenthal as saying that Benjamin Netanyahu offered Kirk $150 million and turned it down, but that's not what Max Blumenthal said. I'm gonna just read you a clip of the article that he posted 2 days after Kirk died. So he reports, Charlie Kirk rejected an offer earlier this month from Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to arrange a massive new infusion of Zionist money into his Turning Point USA organization, America's largest conservative youth association, according to a longtime friend of the slain commentator, speaking on the condition of anonymity. So this was not Max Blumenthal saying this. This was a close friend of Charlie Kirk telling Max Blumenthal this, and Max Blumenthal simply reporting it. The source told The Gray Zone that the late pro-Trump influencer believed Netanyahu was trying to cow him into silence as he began to publicly question Israel's overwhelming influence in Washington and demanded more space to criticize it, which we know to be true. There is certainly no evidence of an Israeli government role in Kirk's assassination, so Max Blumenthal made it clear that there is currently no evidence of an Israeli government role in Kirk's assassination. So Max Blumenthal himself did not say he thinks that Israel had anything to do with it. Neither did Candace Owens. But I think Nick Fuentes is continuing to misrepresent that, and as you hear from young influencers, I think they can see when Nick Fuentes is sort of like being on the mark and a little bit veering off course. And that's good. I don't think you necessarily need to dismiss Nick Fuentes completely, but we do need to be critical of each other and keep each other on the mark as best as we can. And also while giving each other grace, because we're humans and we're fallible. But I think Nick is also forgetting that he himself said early on that he spoke to multiple sources and can confirm himself what was being reported about this allegation floating around that Bibi offered Charlie Kirk $150 million, and even presented more information that Candace and Max Blumenthal didn't even offer. Listen to this.
Israel offered him $150 million to be more pro-Israel than they already were, to be harder in their support for Israel, and in particular, to support regime change in Iran and to support their ethnic cleansing and genocide in Gaza. And Charlie Kirk refused the money. And I have independently confirmed that, by the way. I've heard that from 4 people. 4 people that I trust that are in the know. So this is coming from Candace Owens, a friend of Charlie Kirk. This is coming from Max Blumenthal, who purports to have a source. And I have heard from a handful of people independently of those sources that this offer was real and that Kirk turned down the money. After Charlie Kirk turned down the money, Netanyahu asked if he would come visit Jerusalem and give him the re-education tour. The Holocaust Museum, the burned babies, the beheaded babies, the one that Elon Musk took, the one that our Speaker of the House took, anyone that's ever criticized Israel has been subjected to. He refused that as well.
Just a little reminder that Nick is saying a lot of things, and if you're not keeping up with it and you're not focusing on all the different things that he says, you might get lost and not realize that he does sort of contradict himself a lot. So I think it's the job of all of us to sort of keep each other on track. You know what I mean? And help each other stay focused, you know? And that's why we criticize each other and we call each other out. But the overall point here is that Candace is the only one looking into this deeply, and it's really not necessary to counter so aggressively, Nick. It really isn't. You can opt to be a little less aggressive, since I assume you have the same questions, but you are intentionally maligning her investigation. Again, Why?
It will be very interesting to see how Candace Owens responds to this development, because she insinuated that she had the letter and she knew what was in it, and she seemed to imply that the letter was anti-Israel. Well, that was not true. Rather than go on her show and say, you know what, I went on my show half-cocked, and based on hearsay, she dismisses it, and then it's just on to the next baseless claim. She spent about 30 seconds on it. She said, well, was it sent by email or by fax? Lady, who gives a shit? It's a real letter. And then immediately she turns, and I couldn't even believe it. She said, well, I have evidence that 48 hours before he was murdered, he went against Israel. She said, so I'm not making that up. I have no evidence for it. She said, but if you call me a liar, then I'll release videos proving it. Why don't you release the, it's just pathetic. You didn't release the letter because you either didn't have it or you lied about it. You didn't release your evidence about the Bill Ackman retreat because you didn't have it or you lied about it. And now she claims she's got videos of Charlie condemning Israel. That's convenient. That's the first we've ever heard of that. Where's that been for the past 3 weeks? He died 20 days ago. Now that the letter is proven to be bogus, oh, I just discovered that I have a new thing, but I'm not going to show it to you unless. It's just embarrassing. I don't even know what more to say about that other than if you're still on that train, you got to just be honest with yourself. You got to be honest about the facts. It just isn't there. And honestly, she should be ashamed of herself. I think she's a disgusting and vile human being. Shame on her. Shame on her and what she's doing to the family. Shame on her, how she's exploiting her friend's death. This sick and twisted person has exploited the death and grifting off of it, spinning up this conspiracy theory that has no evidence because there's an appetite for it. And it has just got to be the most heinous thing I've ever seen. She is a gross, lying, low integrity, low honor, ignorant negress. That's what she is.
Low integrity negress. That's just, I can't. You have to admit, this guy is so funny and it's hilarious. Definitely entertaining. I think it would be interesting if he had his own reality TV show or something. He's just so ridiculous. Yeah, so yes, we should forget about and reject this ignorant, grifting negress and swallow the FBI radical shooter slop they're feeding us. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Nick. First of all, Nick is coming off as someone who is so personally offended by Candace, and probably because of her sex and race, as well as the way she treated him in the interview that they had, that he cannot be objective about this. Like, I'm just saying that's what he's giving off. To me, that's how I'm kind of receiving what he's giving. But to be clear, the love letter that Charlie wrote to Bibi was back in May. And you can tell from the letter, at least if that's the original letter, and wasn't doctored in any way, that he was still doing his very best to prove to the Zionists that all he had for Israel was love, that he would do almost anything for Israel. Although, and Nick missed this point when he read some of the letter on that stream, Charlie did slip up a bit on point 6, where he dared to be honest and say what he truly felt. And listen to this. He says, our generation was also lied to by the governments of Israel and the US that COVID vaccines were safe and effective. Whoa, are you accusing the Israeli government of lying to the American public? How dare you? Israel intelligence missed the boat on October 7th, but we're asked to trust Israeli intelligence 100% that Iran is on the cusp of obtaining nuclear weapons. Guys, that is past the mark of anti-Semitism, like far out, like all the way out. Because now he's saying the same exact things that we're all saying, all of us anti-Semites. So it's a little excerpt in that 7-page letter where he's starting to kind of accuse Israel of lying and not being as good as it seems. But it's huge because, as you know, once you're in the Zionist cult, you cannot waver even slightly. Okay, and then he says, I share the concern that America will get sucked into another endless war, costing thousands of American lives. Well, now he's declaring in writing to Bibi Netanyahu that he is an isolationist. That's what they call these people who fear going to war with Iran. The Zionists call us, who don't want to get into any more wars for them, isolationists. So this is isolationist language right here. This is enemy talk.
When the hostile reaction is that now Meghan and Charlie are enemies?
Okay, so Nick Fuentes is missing really important points in his own research into this, which is fine. That's what we're all here for. We're all on the same team, for the most part. So we're all here to sort of fill in the gaps for each other as we try to close ranks and go after the enemy, right? Okay, now this love letter that Charlie sent to Bibi was back in May. Lots of things happened between this letter in May and September, the execution. And Max Blumenthal breaks it down really well. Listen to this. It's a bit lengthy, but take a listen. He does a really good job at this.
Someone close to Netanyahu releases this letter. It was obviously an exercise in damage control, and the letter is a digital reproduction of something. It's undated, and what it contains is more complex than the way some who have either deliberately attempted to spin it to make Charlie Kirk seem like this diehard, dyed-in-the-wool, ride-or-die Israel supporter, and so too was the New York Post, which is a vehicle for Netanyahu's propaganda machine. But if you look at the letter, the contents are much more complex. I mean, and you can see Charlie Kirk doesn't understand the position he's in as a Israeli subcontractor. And he's asking Netanyahu and Israel to do the work of Israeli propaganda in the US rather than contract out to all of these highly influential Gentiles. He doesn't get how it works. The other thing is the letter supposedly was dated in May. It's almost like it felt like light years away from where Charlie Kirk wound up in August following this very uncomfortable influencer summit where he was screamed at by a Zionist fanatic who's a UK lawyer named Natasha Hausdorff. And basically, if you look at the timeline and the chronology, the letter comes out in May. He also is urging Netanyahu to make his own case for the war on Iran and stating that the American public is against the war and that he doesn't want to be a lobbyist for a war for another country in that letter. The war comes in June. Charlie Kirk is in the White House lobbying against the war. That's a fact. I reported that first, and then J.D. Vance, the vice president of the U.S., corroborated what I reported, as did Tucker Carlson. Then July, the Student Action Summit of TPUSA in Florida, where Tucker Carlson lashes out at Bill Ackman, everyone from him to Megyn Kelly to Rob Schneider, the comedian, calls Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad agent and says the president needs to, tell the public the truth, which made Trump very uncomfortable as well as Israel. And they have this debate about the Gaza genocide with comic Dave Smith, an anti-Zionist Jew, on stage. You're not supposed to debate this. So Charlie Kirk he's not doing what his donors want. His donors want total loyalty to Israel, and they want the influential Gentiles to make the case for the self-proclaimed Jewish state in the US. He's not doing it anymore. Then the Influencer Summit in August. A day after that summit, he goes on the show of former Fox News host Megyn Kelly and complains about stakeholders and funders who are bossing him around, and complains, I have less ability to criticize Israel than Israelis do. So it's very clear there's a difference in what happened between August and May with Charlie Kirk. And then, as I reported, he lost one of his biggest, if not his absolute biggest donor a month later, right before his death, Robert Shillman. But this letter was an obvious exercise in damage control. And anyone who's, on the, anti-Zionist side who believes that letter shows that Charlie Kirk was just this pro-Israel fanatic and doesn't understand the real role he was playing and what it says about the larger role of political operatives who are basically relying on this Zionist billionaire donor class in the US, is playing Netanyahu's game. So what is Netanyahu doing? His government just hired Trump's former campaign manager. His name is Brad Pascal, to the tune of $1.5 million a month for the next 4 months to recruit Gen Z influencers. All of them are going to be like conservative oriented, anti-woke, race baiters, to game the algorithm of ChatGPT, to work on mechanisms for making sure that ChatGPT does not deliver answers that interfere with Israel's narrative. And on those influencers, there's a company that's been set up by Israel in Germany. It's sort of like a third party to channel money into these influencers in the US. And according to the contract, if you break down the math, some influencers are getting paid $7,000 per post, which means they could be getting like $100,000 a month. I mean, I don't know how much you're getting for Dialogue Works, but it's like very tempting if you have no soul to just sell out. They're recruiting cultural figures. Azalea Banks, this washed up rapper who's sort of a loudmouth on Twitter X, is going to perform in Israel on October 7th. They just straight up bought her. They noticed that she was like trashing Palestinians, so they just bought her. I mean, I guarantee you she's gotten millions of dollars. These are not the actions of a country that is confident about its narrative and that thinks that it's winning the PR battle. It's sort of the death rattle of a multi-billion-dollar Hasbara complex. You know, in Washington, D.C., where I am, the city is now filled with these billboard trucks showing images of frightened people on October 7th and atrocities on October 7th, many of them actually committed by the Israeli military against their own citizens. They're just everywhere in DC. So they're losing. And Charlie Kirk was really one of the most clear symbols of Israel's propaganda defeat, which is why they're spinning it and doing so much damage control.
So Max Blumenthal kind of presents the case here, right? We all saw it. Between May and August, and literally before he died, he was grappling with, should I not talk about this? He even at one point pulled away from talking about Epstein, and he said, you know what, I'm going to trust the Trump administration. And he just couldn't, because it was so unreasonable. It was so irrational to take that stance. It just didn't make any sense. And it was very anti-American to take that stance, to say, I am watching this administration do the opposite of transparency, and I just can't sit around, because time is of the essence. It is. And he wasn't willing to wait and see what happened. He was like, you know what? I'm getting back on this Epstein train. I'm going to have Tucker and all of these voices come to these events. And if they want to talk about it, talk about it. I'm not going to cave under the pressure and censor myself, censor my base. I'm just not going to do it. And he didn't. And unfortunately, I think that this is a sacrifice we all have to make, isn't it? We have to say, absolutely not. We don't care what you say. We don't care what you do. We are not going to censor ourselves. So bring it on. But Charlie Kirk sincerely believed, I think, that he earned the authority to be a Zionist that tells the truth. I've been saying this from pretty much day one, since I decided responsibly or irresponsibly to become a podcaster, that Zionists are allergic to the truth. I am new to this, and I can tell that, just from the limited amount of research relatively that I've been doing. But I don't think Charlie understood that. Zionists are forbidden from telling the truth. So his love letter, him having a rabbi on his podcast to tell Americans that Israel wasn't starving an entire population of innocent people, his commitment to group Hasbara meetings, nothing would be enough to convince these hyper-paranoid elites that he truly loved Israel, and his questions and observations were to improve the relationship between Israel and America, not hurt it, without realizing that they don't give a damn about America. They want to hurt America. They don't care. America is collateral. He just didn't get it. And that he was assisting that project. In the same way, I made an episode about this a couple of weeks ago. Tucker Carlson spent his whole life assisting and facilitating that project. And in spite of how much I disagreed with everything that he was, my heart does go out to him, because he had been programmed from a very young age, and it took him a really long time to realize that the relationship between Israel and America is a parasitic one, not a symbiotic one. But you do have to be a true warrior to wake up from a dream, look the beast in the face, and say, I'm going to talk about it anyway. I'm going to wake my base up to some of the elements destroying our country, like the fact that all of our politicians are leashed by Epstein's blackmail. So Nick is definitely being aggressive and impatient, as we are all discovering, including Candace, how to navigate the power and oppression of the entire cabal of world leaders. None of us really know what information or evidence Candace has. I don't know how many people have had to back out of being whistleblowers due to internal pressure. I do believe that she's doing her very best to investigate what really went down. And I think that we can all imagine that there is a lot of fear-mongering and threats going on behind the scenes to inspire fear in any potential or active whistleblowers. And it could be that many of them are now withdrawing statements that they've made or changing them. Candace also made it very clear that she's coordinating a lot of her investigation with other journalists, which may impede how she herself reports updates to us as the investigation proceeds. And I think it's noteworthy to point out that one of Ian Carroll's contacts actually dropped this text message on X yesterday, which I find kind of interesting. So I'm going to read this to you. What I know is, when it comes to actual Turning Point USA staff, up to even director level, a lot of people are on the same page. People want the truth. The problem is the board and the typical successful investors and business mentors to the team. For instance, if you had an investor/advisor early on into official Patriot gear and your company thought there was something suspicious about them, it's hard to get answers because they aren't part of the day-to-day. So that's the bad news. It's hard to get a lot of answers. The good news, however, is with a lot of TPUSA staff being on the same page as people like you and Candace and Ian. people at the top of the company are able to give Candace some of the internal memos she's been talking about and hearing about these conversations that have been going on. There's memos she's been seeing that have only gone out to a few director level type of people, so it shows the actual staff, even higher ups, want the answers too. So this text message is punctuated a little bit strange, so I'm gonna try and to make sense of it, even with the strange punctuation, so bear with me. So it goes, honestly, bro, I can just text you. I'm willing to lose my job. But from what we believe, and I think a few people already told Candace, I think she mentioned it on her episode yesterday, is that one or maybe two people who sit on our board of directors was directly financially benefiting from any Israeli donations that were coming in. They are obviously people who were close to Charlie. And as you can imagine, he was the busiest dude ever. So he couldn't be there for absolutely every donor meeting and all that, which is where he would trust his board of directors. I think Candace actually knows exactly which board members it is. We personally aren't sure who. From doing a little financial digging, we believe someone on the board has a pay structure that's based directly on the amount of donations coming in. And that's why even with Charlie starting to go against this narrative recently, they somehow were still able to get in the room with him and try and sway him into not asking any more questions. So there is a lot of stuff being revealed, and I feel more grateful than not that we have an army of internet sleuths on the case trying to unpack what happened. I mean, imagine if we had what we have today during JFK and 9/11. Like, imagine that. It's crazy. But that was then, this is now, and we have an international army of people investigating this case, and we all get to see it play out in real time, which is incredible. And we should expect delays and mishaps in the investigation process because we don't have the resources that the state has. And Nick can be a bit understanding about that, but he chooses not to. That being said, I am far from giving up on Nick Fuentes as an ally. We just have to be critical of everyone because we don't really know each other, right? And as I said before, we're all humans and we're all fallible. However, I do feel certain that Nick Fuentes is smart enough to know that only unity can conquer this beast who has relied on every trick in the book to keep humanity divided. And he delivered that message beautifully in his stream a couple nights ago, which I'm going to share with you right now. And in this particular part of the stream, he's responding to Matt Walsh, who has decided to chug the full jar of Kool-Aid and become a full-blown overt Zionist and confronted Glenn Greenwald with this post. So Glenn Greenwald says, people who have tried to convince Americans that the primary threat to their lives is Muslims are almost always those eager to convince Americans they have the same enemies as Israel and must thus unite with Israel in its wars, and those who work for people with that agenda. And Matt Walsh goes, you got me, Glenn. I'm opposed to building an Islamic state right in the middle of American heartland because of my love for Israel. It couldn't just be that I'm concerned about my own country. Your Israel fetish has rotted your brain, Glenn. And of course, Nick Fuentes comes in and ratios him right away by responding, you constantly talk about how cities like Dearborn or Minneapolis are run by Muslims, which is a problem. But why don't you ever talk about government, academia, media, Hollywood, and finance being run by Jews? Did the founding fathers intend on that arrangement? And I'm going to play you what he says on his stream, which is great.
And by the way, this is the same guy who three weeks ago said, we just need to bring the whole right wing together. We need to unite the right. Unite the right against what? Dearborn, Michigan's mayor? How about uniting the right against the Jewish mothership controlling America? Then we can deal with Dearborn. Then we could deal with Minneapolis. Why don't we start with the ADL, AIPAC, B'nai B'rith, Hillel, the Israeli Foreign Ministry, the fucking U.S. State Department? Why don't we start there? BlackRock, Blackstone. I mean, why don't we start with the actual institutions that have power, which are being influenced by a foreign country or foreign influence? So someone like Matt Walsh goes on Twitter naming the Muslim mayor of Dearborn. Hey, good stuff, Matt. When are you going to talk about the Jewish mayor of America? Hello, his name is Prime Minister Netanyahu. It never ceases to amaze me, these gruff, middle-aged white guys with beards, drinking their Black Rifle coffee, wearing their flannel shirts, rolling up their sleeves. You know, they got so much to say about the blacks, about the Muslims, about the immigrants. They will never say boo about the Jews, and that's just cowardly.
Yeah, so I just want to say, I got into it in the comments with someone because they were accusing accusing me of not being able to understand Nick Fuentes' strategy because of my XY chromosomes. And this is, of course, a very retarded view that people like Nick and Candace have espoused, that women are inherently emotional and men are inherently logical, when history has proven that no such boundary exists. And I think it's pretty evident what the logic of male leadership has resulted in after centuries of men being in power and having the most power over human civilization. And this is not a stab at maleness. This is just reality, right? And I think the reason why we are where we are is because men are as logical as they are emotional. Men are as reasonable as they are irrational. Men are burdened by all of the human emotions that women are burdened by. So I'm never going to get on board with this men are a certain way, women are a certain way kind of nonsense. It's just something that I will not subscribe to. So sorry. I have met a ton of very emotional, cowardly, irrational, reactionary men in my life, and I met a lot of emotional, cowardly, reactionary, irrational women in my life. And to me, it's all circumstantial. It's all based on where they come from, what they were exposed to, etc., etc., etc. And honestly, if men were inherently stronger and more logical and braver, I think we'd see more men being able to reason that turning on their fellow citizens to help pedophiles advance their agenda is insanity. But we're not seeing that, are we? At least we would just see more men in general being based. We're not seeing that. So again, this is not a stab at men. This is just to highlight that bravery, strength, logic, reason is not inherently male, and women are not inherently incapable of being logical and reasonable and practical, pragmatic, etc. And emotions are not a bad thing. Emotions are absolutely necessary, and what we really need to do is become more emotionally intelligent, which human civilization in general doesn't really promote. So yeah, I don't know if I just rambled off and didn't make any sense, but I just needed to say that.
Why don't you ever talk about government, academia, media, Hollywood, finance being run by Jews? Did the founding fathers intend on that? Did they intend on people with Steen and Berg and Witts? Were those people supposed to be running the banks, the news, the government, the State Department? I don't think so. Get real. Get a grip, man. You're a white Catholic. Start acting like it. Don't be such a coward. And Matt Walsh, when he is ready to just talk about the real issue, I will shake his hand. I will apologize. I will be right there with him. But until that day comes, I have to call you out. It's not personal. I don't hate you. I don't even think he's a bad guy, but he is being a coward. You are being a coward. I will hear no more chest beating, chest thumping by white men who are so cowardly they won't talk about who is really taking our sovereignty from us.
And I want to echo Nick's sentiment that being critical of each other is not a personal attack, even though sometimes I think Nick's critique of Candace is a bit personal. I don't know if he has enough experience in life to be a little bit more objective when it comes to people that he personally dislikes, but I don't know. I'm just a feeling that I have about him. And again, he's only 27, right? So we can give him some grace. But another topic that I wanted to touch on, which Nicholas is touching on here, is the fact that I got into it in the comments again with someone about whiteness and blackness. And he was kind of telling me that because I am black, I'm not American, that I should go back to my country, and I don't really have a fight here. And of course, I'm just like, you can say whatever the fuck you want, dude. I'm American, and nothing you say is ever going to change that. But I think a lot of people are missing the fact that white elites are allying with Jewish elites and other elites to target white people. Okay, I think there was a time in history where white elites and Jewish elites, at least in America, were sort of forming an alliance and being white supremacists up until a certain point when white elites and Jewish elites and other elites decided that, you know what, we need a more submissive population. And white middle class people make up a sort of barrier to our freedom, the freedoms that we want as white elites. And so they decided to pour a bunch of money into policies and campaigns and agendas that antagonized the white population, the white middle class. The biggest enemy of white people is white people, okay? Like, they're coming after you. They're creating bioweapons to get all of us, including you. They opened the borders to make you feel uncomfortable. They go out and destroy other societies. They genocide other populations. And then they open the borders and let traumatized, radicalized, desperate people flood in illegally on purpose. And then they flood our cities with the drugs, and they do all these sorts of crazy things to make sure that we are antagonized by each other. So white people, wake the fuck up and realize that your biggest enemy actually is your own people. And that is not to say that a lot of us haven't been indoctrinated to hate each other. So you're always gonna have blacks and Muslims and other minorities sort of spewing anti-white rhetoric. You're always gonna have that because we've been indoctrinated into that by white elites, by Jewish elites. But there are a lot of us deprogramming from that and realize that we are all human beings. We can all coexist. It is actually possible. And it's the elite class that is making sure that that remains impossible. And so unless we figure out how to challenge that force, we're not gonna get anywhere. That's my perspective on that. I don't know how accurate it is, but that's really my perspective on that, and I wanted to share it. I get into very lengthy exchanges with people in the comments about that, so I just wanted to articulate it a bit on my podcast rather than just buried in the comments. But anyway, let's get back to Nick. I think he's doing a really great job here.
Don't you notice it's always these white men beating their chest? Our civilization explores, pioneers, conquerors. These brown people could never. The founding fathers would never. What do you think the founding fathers would say about you working for Ben Shapiro, huh? What do you think they would say about Jews running the Ivy Leagues, Jews running the media? Do not even say founding fathers. You don't have the right. You have no right. Keep their names out of your fucking mouth, Matt Walsh. We need to unite against the left. No, pal. We need to unite as Americans for our sovereignty and independence. It ain't a difference of opinion. It's black and white, clear as crystal. That is the predicament that we're in. We are occupied, and it ain't by Muslims. It's by Jews, obviously. They need to hear that from their right flank. I appreciate Glenn Greenwald and Michael Tracy giving these guys a hard time. They need to hear it from someone on their right. I cannot stand it. And I saw this clip the other day from Josh Hammer and Mark Levin. Fuck these people. Like, deeply, seriously, all real Americans, if you are a real American, if you were born in this country, I don't even care who you are, what you are, if you are a real American that loves this country, you have generations in this country, your family or you fought for this flag, fought for the Constitution, fought for our church, fought for our civilization. For all of you, I say about Josh Hammer and Mark Levin and Laura Loomer, fuck them. Fuck them. Deeply, seriously get them the fuck out of our country. I saw Josh Hammer and Mark Levin. Now that Charlie Kirk was killed, they got together on their show where they're advocating for Netanyahu and war with Iran and more dead Americans, more dead young white men for Israel. I saw them get together on their show and they said, well, one concern we have about the death of Charlie Kirk is that who is going to keep the gate and prevent filth like Nick Fuentes? Josh Hammer said, who's going to prevent anti-Semitic filth like Nick Fuentes from taking over? Newsflash, buddy. Hey, Josh Hammer, Mark Levin, you're the filth. You want to talk about this land was promised to us 2,000 years? You ain't there. You're not home. Never forget that. You're feeling a little too comfortable here talking like that about Americans. This is Josh Hammer, the same guy that said Europeans have Jew hatred in their DNA. We're supposed to go and fight their wars, though, and love them and love their country and love everything they're about. They're filth. They're Jew-hating filth. You're filth, pal.
I'm sorry, guys. It's funny when he goes after Candace. It's funny when he goes after Mark Levin and Josh Hammer. It's just funny. I'm sorry. It's my sense of humor. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but but he's absolutely right. Of course. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you gonna tell me that you were promised this land and you want me to fight and die for it? Are you out of your mind. So I think that the war is being fought. A lot of us are awake, a lot of us are resisting, and it's actually having an impact. So for people who think the war is already over, think again. The Zionists are scrambling, they're desperate, they're doing all sorts of sloppy, dumb things. Charlie Kirk was their biggest mistake. They've recruited and waken up so many people around the world, and now so many people around the world are watching them botch this investigation. So many people are watching them and saying, wait a minute, are we supposed to trust you and you're telling us who Charlie is? But did you kill him though? Did you? I think lots of people are suspecting that at this point. And if these people don't figure out how to bring up credible evidence that they didn't, most people are gonna run with that theory. So the burden of proof is on the government, is on the state, is on Israel to prove that they didn't do this. And right now, instead of releasing more footage, instead of releasing more documentation, more evidence, they're pushing Tyler Robinson. That's not working. So the battle from the Gen Z front is picking up steam as the youth are rebelling on the battleground of TikTok, and we're here for it. We're absolutely here for it. Take a listen to this. You're gonna love this.
So because I am morally bankrupt, I had the absolute pleasure of meeting with Israeli Prime Minister and war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu as part of a conservative Christian propagandist group. That's right, not a focus group, because the focus was never asking him anything real. The focus was repeating whatever talking points he handed us. And of course I got to ask him the hard-hitting questions, not about the crimes he's committing, don't be silly, but the important stuff like, are you paying influencers, and if so, how much? Then we cleared up the AIPAC thing. It's not an Israeli organization, and it's definitely not a foreign lobbyist group. It's a lobbyist group that happens to lobby for a foreign government. And then Netanyahu turned it back on us and asked us what Israel could be doing better in terms of their messaging. And because each and every single one of us lacks humanity, not one of us mentioned to maybe stop bombing children, allow aid trucks into Gaza, or stop starving civilians. Quite frankly, the only feedback we had was to pay influencers more to lie on your behalf. I didn't go to Israel with integrity, I went with an invoice, and as long as the check clears, consider my spine officially optional.
So yeah, we're at war and we're not taking this line down. We're just not. And I love that the Gen Zers are finding all of these creative ways to get the message out. Larry Ellison. So whether we win or lose this war, we are not going to make it easy for them. That is the goal. And if we win, that is the bonus. Okay, whatever we do, we must resist. And lastly, before I sign off for the day, I do have one last message that I really think is worth sharing, and it's from Ryan Mata, who I call the pedophile hunter. Listen to this.
Oh shit, bro, the writing's on the gosh damn walls. Wake up, America. Anybody who's been promoting this trans slop, trans shooter agenda, they're fucking trash. They're carrying weight for this administration. They're selling you out. They're getting paid. They're getting access. They're getting money. They're getting fucking bonuses. They're getting sponsors. They're getting featured on Rumble. They're getting it all, baby. And you want to know what you're getting? Higher electricity bills, higher gas prices, the dollar's hyperinflating, your government's robbing you gosh damn blind, and they're bankrupting your ass. You're giving 53% of your every paycheck you make to a government that hates you. And these ass clowns over here, the Benny Johnson, the Cullen Ruggs, they're fucking carrying that weight, bro. They're stroking. They would lick the fucking floor at Mar-a-Lago to take a selfie with fucking Trump. Don't you dare come together and stand united. Because only 24% of Americans actually are pro-Israel at this point. That's it, 24%. Yet 98% of our government is pro-Israel. Let me ask you this, America. How much longer are you gonna give Benny Johnson, the Nick Sorters, the Cat Turds, the Colin Ruggs your attention? Because they're taking that attention and they're using it to acquire wealth, and they're using that wealth and power to build teams, to build out media empires, and they're gonna use those media empires to brainwash and manipulate you into voting for J.D. Vance in 2028. It's the same Con Inc. establishment that we fought so hard that we thought Trump was going to be the solution to. We were all wrong. And the sooner we all start waking up and realizing that this has been an entire Con Inc. con job and we got played, the sooner we can start building resources and teams of people. There's a new anti-Zionist committee or the anti-Zionist PAC that's getting built up. I mean, if each of us just donated $5 to the anti-Zionist PAC, we might be able to unseat some of these politicians. And if we don't start unseating them soon, they are going to have so much power that it's going to be impossible for us to take our country back. So if you guys really want to save America, stop giving your time and attention to the clown world and start helping us fight. God bless you guys.
Yeah, and I want to say that I've been sitting through some of these meetings on X Spaces with the Anti-Zionist PAC. I will have a link to the Anti-Zionist PAC website in my description below and also on my X account. And I encourage everyone to go bookmark the site and try to participate and engage with it as much as you can. Follow them on X, give them support to help boost the algorithm. But we have to do everything that we can to resist. Whatever little we can, we have to do it, because we are now in a very unprecedented moment in history where the globe is united against a common enemy, and we're all noticing at the same time. So if there was ever a time to participate in the resistance, it would be now. So for everyone participating in this war, leave your flags in the comments, and if not, leave me a thumbs up to let me know that you were here, and I cannot wait to see you in my next episode.